A couple of the things to keep in mind with Premiere Pro and the similarities that it has with Photoshop is we're working with a series of different palettes. I think you may be needed. Oh. So we're going to be working with a series of different palettes, and each one of those palettes has a different functionality, and you can rearrange them and put them wherever you want, whatever's useful. I have them where they're useful for me with the way I like to use Premiere Pro, but if you come up here under Window and Workspaces, there's a whole series of different types of workspaces that you can employ. Here, I'll just show you one other. If I'm in coloring mode, for example, and I switch to color, it rearranges all of my palettes to give me the most optimal palettes for the coloring process. Right? If I am back into Workspaces, if I am in the Essentials, right? If I'm just doing the basics, it gives me the basics, and it gives them in a way that's great for beginners. And so this would be a great place to start. This is how I'm going to do it today, but next time it might be different, right? But Essentials is a great way to begin. I often will use editing mode. Editing mode is quite useful. It gives you your effect controls over here while you're in the middle of working on a specific frame. It gives you a whole series of controls over here that I particularly like to use while I'm in the middle of editing. So feel free to play with the different workspaces and know that nothing's lost. If it all shifts, they're just palettes, they're not going anywhere, and you can get them back. It's just more a matter of trying to find the right arrangement that works for you, and you can completely customize your workspace as well. So the better you become with Premiere Pro and Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign, any of these programs, the more you can customize the tools and the palettes to be just what you want them to be while you're working. I do recommend that if you find that there are palettes in here that you just don't use, they're not part of your workflow, like for example, markers here is one that I don't use. I'm going to close that panel. Get it out of the way. You don't need it here when getting in the way so that you have to hunt through a lot of palettes. Premiere Pro and Photoshop and Illustrator, all of these programs are going to have way more. They're going to offer way more to you because they're powerful, powerful programs than you're going to need for any given job. So as you're setting up a job, try to find the types of palettes that work well for the type of work that you're going to work on. Okay, so the next thing that's important with the next important similarity with Photoshop is layers. Everything is done in layers, and right now you can see here that I've got a series of layers. I've got V1, 2, 3, and 4 standing for the video part of it. That's the visual side. And then I have A1, 2, 3 going down the other direction. That's for the audio portion of it, so that I can work those together seamlessly, right? And you can see here that unlike Photoshop, I don't have like an unlimited number of layers. When I was working in Photoshop, I had that over on the side, and I had 100 layers on the side that I could work with. This is much more complicated. If you'll watch my hands for just 1 second though, one of the differences between Photoshop and Premiere Pro is Photoshop works with layers like this. Of course, when you're viewing it like this. You're looking through all of the layers, right? But they're ordered like this, so that whatever's at the top is closest to you as you're viewing it, and whatever's on the bottom of the layers is furthest away from you as you're viewing it. So this is kind of a perceptual way of imagining the way layers work, and it's the same here. Well, Premiere Pro is a stack of layers times every second. Right? And that series of layers can shift and change and mold as you're moving through time. And so this is Photoshop times time, right? Essentially. You can do things with still images as well as visual animated images as well, and work them all together to create the fill that you're looking for. Today I'm going to teach you how to use the most basic tools, how to clip things and make them the size that you want, reshuffle them, work with the different layers, add new layers, add in some audio, time things and sequence them correctly. These are going to be the types of things that I'm going to help you with today. And in our next session, we're going to get into some of the more powerful tools, you'll remember in the Photoshop sessions that I talked a lot about smart objects and how powerful that has made Photoshop. This does the same thing, but it's called nesting. And it allows you, for example, to do a sequence and get that sequence where you want it. But let's say that it's a sequence you want to use a lot in a lot of different environments, or you want it to repeat again and again and again. Maybe it's a symbol of something, a swish, that you're going to do again and again, right? You can take that sequence of visual elements and select them all and nest them together into a single object, and then you can use it again and again and again as an individually animated object. And it makes Premiere Pro quite powerful. It allows you to do many fun things. Then there's effects. Today I'm going to introduce you to effects, but we're going to go into greater depth with both audio effects and video effects, right? We have to consider them separately and then together, because they are separate but work together. I must confess that my experience with the audio side of Premiere Pro is somewhat limited, so I'll show you what I do know about it. It will be advanced compared to anything a beginner is doing, but it's definitely not at the pro level. I don't have to spend a lot of time in the audio section. And then I'm going to share with you a couple of great resources that if you are needing what we call B-roll, and I'll explain what that is in a moment. There's some great stock sites where you can download lots of B-roll to get what you need as kind of filler visuals that help with whatever messaging you're trying to do. Okay. So if we look here at the lay of the land, right now I am in my editing workspace. And the most important palettes that you need to have at the beginning, in fact, I'm going to close this and start a new one. That's probably the best part to be. Okay, so we start with a blank page here, and we're going to start a new project. Okay, so we click New Project, and when we come in here, it's trying to suggest videos that I can add to it. Don't even worry about videos yet. Right now, worry about where the video is going to be saved. And this is one of those aspects that is critical. If you're going to be making more than one video in your life, you need to have a very organized way of saving all the assets, because those assets are not going to be embedded in the video. They're only going to be linked to the video. And if they become unlinked, finding them could take hours and days of your time in order to try to get everything back together. And there are tools that speed that up, but I'm going to try to save you as much headache as I can in the beginning by teaching you to save in an organized way. So the way I like to do it, the way I prefer to do it, is I work in Bridge. Bridge is like Windows. It's part of the Adobe suite, and it helps you organize your files. In here, I'm going to come in here to projects. I have a video folder. So this is just one client's folder. Times that by 1,000, and you'll see why I have to keep things as organized as I can. Within the videos folder, I then have an individual folder for each of the videos that I work on. I don't ever pollute them. If I'm using the same element in two different videos, I used to keep it in one place, but now I have a unique assets folder just for that video, so that all of the assets related to any given video is all saved together in the same folder. So to give you an idea of what that looks like, I have this countdown video. In the countdown video, these two folders are created automatically when I initiate a Premiere Pro file. It creates this, which is your working file, a PROG, which is Premiere Pro, or Premiere Project, sorry. This is the file that you would open up, and all of the assets, all the coding related to the development of that is saved in here, including autosaves. This is a very thankful thing. It will take up a lot of disk space, so just know that video takes a lot of disk space. If you don't have it, you may want to invest in a system that has a substantial amount of disk space to work with. Otherwise, save things in the cloud and make sure that you're constantly working in the cloud and reserving some good, healthy, workable space for the video you're working on at the time. Then I create an assets folder. Inside this assets folder will be all of the video and audio related to anything that I'm doing in this video, and I keep it separate from my output. My output is my finished video. Once I've edited it the way that I want, I will export it into a format that works for if I'm uploading it to YouTube or wherever I'm sending it. It's typically usually either a .mov or a .mp4, and those are there are other video formats as well, and all of the video formats will import into here just fine, but for the export, those are the two most common export ones. MP4 is going to be the most generally accessible by everyone. That will open on Apple and Android and Microsoft. MP4 is generic, and it will open on everything. MOV is specific to the Apple world, to the Macintosh world. So, so kind of like MP3, and is to the audio world. Okay, so when we come back here to Premiere Pro, we're going to name, and we're gonna call this one Dugutigi sample. And I'm calling it that. Dugutigi in Malian means chief of the village. And I happen to be doing work over in Mali right now with a program where we work with high-level executives and give them a retreat in Africa. And we teach them, we talk about principles of being chief of their village versus the chief of the village here. So Dugutigi sample. I'm going to then choose the folder where I want to save everything. So here's where I would want to make a new folder. For today's purposes, I'm just going to save it in my downloads folder. Create a folder here called Dugutigi sample. I do highly recommend that you intentionally save everything, meaning don't just save and hope to find where it went. Choose a folder, name the folder, work with care, because video gets very hairy compared to other files that I've worked with. All right, we're going to choose that, and we're going to create. All right, so when I create, you'll see here that it brings me now to a blank canvas. I've got nothing to work with, and if you don't have any experience with it, you're going to get here and be like, now what do I do, right? Okay, the first thing you want to do is now bring in your assets. So your assets would be, for example, if you recorded a series of videos and you want to edit those videos, the first thing you do is you'd find where you saved them, and you just drag them into this import media place right here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my Dugutigi stuff and into my assets, video, and stock. Okay, we're gonna pull some of this stuff in. Not gonna worry about the audio yet, but I'm gonna take these videos and I'm going to just drag them into that spot here. And once they're in here, now I have something to begin working with. However, they're not on my timeline yet. So I've not added them. They're accessible to me in a library of assets that I can bring over, but they're not yet accessible. So the next thing I'm going to do, and I can either do this all at once, I'm going to do it all at once so you can see what happens. If I drag them onto my timeline, then it stacks them all back to back together like this. See how that is? And knowing that I can rearrange them. And some of them seem to have sound, and some of them don't. So I'm going to turn my sound up. That one actually doesn't have sound, but it has a sound file, even though it doesn't have sound. Let's see if this one does. Right here. Nope, doesn't have sound either. Now, some of these files, they are way too big for this space, meaning they were filmed or built at ultra high definition size, which is, you may want to write these numbers down. Ultra high definition size is 3840 by 2160. Okay, so ultra high def is for huge monitors, and things will eventually always be ultra high def. Right now, most of the stuff you're working with, anything that's going to be watched on a phone, anything that's going to be watched on a standard laptop or desktop, the biggest you'll ever need it is 1920 by 1080, which the numbers are half of the previous numbers I gave you, but the size is actually a fourth the size, right? Because it's width and height. So 1920 by 1080 is what we call HD or 1080p. Those are two terms that we refer to reference this standard size of monitor. 1920 by 1080. Now, you'll want to flip that on its head if you're doing it for phones, right? The short style, you'll want that to be 1080 by 1920. And then it will change that. I can at any time, when you're ready, if you look up here, I can at any time go to my sequence panel here and sequence settings, and I can change those settings to whatever I want them to be, right? And I can flip them, I can make it whatever I want, but when I do, it's going to, my videos are going to be bigger, they're going to be outside that space, and I can move my videos and resize them and make them whatever I want them to be, and I'll show you exactly how that works. But I'm going to start with 1920 by 1080, and this one, my display format is at 50 frames per second. 30 frames per second is probably as low as you want to go. You can go as low as 8 frames per second, but then everything will be kind of jittery like this. Animation used to be at 8 frames per second, and then they got up to 16 frames, 16 pictures per second, and that used to be really smooth for animation. Well, all of our video, if it's anything less than 30, you're going to notice with the human eye. And so 30 is kind of the minimum that I recommend you start with. 50 is great. 60 is common. Just kind of depends on what you're building, how much memory you want it to take, how big you want that file to be, who's going to view it, what they're going to view it on. There's a lot of decisions like this that you will ultimately need to make when you export it. Okay. So that brings us then to, we've got this space here, and all of my video. I'm going to select all of my video. See how I can select all of them at once, or I can select a few of them at a time. I can select this and hold down Control or Command, and I can select, there we go, Shift. In this case, it's Shift. See how I can select 3 individual ones? So you can select these sequences together or separately. I'm going to select all of them, and this menu right here, if I right-click on any one of them, it's going to give me this menu, and this menu is super helpful. A lot of what you need to do is just right here in this right-click menu. Okay? In this case, I want to I'm going to unlink anything. I'm going to unlink the audio from the video, because I want to delete the audio, because I'm going to put in my own audio. Okay? So I'm going to unlink, and then I'm going to right-click again, and I'm going to scale to frame size, meaning if it's twice as big as my frame, I want it to shrink down just to fit within my frame. Okay? So I'm going to scale to frame size, and it's going to take all of my video, and it will now all fit within the space that I'm working. As you can see, these are different views of Molly that I'm going to run together into a sequence. Now I can select my audio also, and I can just delete it. I have a delete button on my mouse, so when I'm saying delete, I'm just hitting my button. But you can just hit backspace or delete on the keyboard, and it will delete all the same. So now I have a series of these, and you can see how they are different lengths. Now, here's the next great strong point. It's this little slider bar down here on the bottom. This is your zoom, and zoom is so critical. And by zoom, I don't mean actually visual zoom. This is how you come in on the details of your second by second, moment by moment editing portion of the video, and it kind of allows you to play with time, right? So that you can get into a fine-tune to just each nanosecond, or you can zoom out and see the whole thing all at once. So I will show you how this works. There's a blue slider here, right here at the top, and this you can move to any moment in time. And once you place it in that moment of time, then you can you can work with that specific element in that moment only. We may or may not get to keyframes today. That's more advanced. I'll probably wait for keyframes for our next tutorial. But with this, if I then slide my slider, you'll see how it widens that space that I'm working in. If I hit the space bar at any time, it's going to just hit play. Now you can see how much time there is in this little segment right here. It's moving quite slowly, panning like as it's a drone that's flying over this village in Mali, and it's moving quite slowly. Well, for my purposes, I only need about 3 seconds of this pan that I'm going for. In fact, let me show you the end goal that I'm going for, just so you can kind of see where we're headed with this. So if I go back into Dugutigi, projects, video. Oh, I think I saved it in. Let me go back to assets, video. Oh, here they are. So if we come in here, now, one of the things I want you to notice as we're going through this is I am transitioning my visual on cue with the music, right? And so I don't need 15 minutes of this flyover. I need a dun 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 change, right? Dun 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 change. And so I'm trying to find. All of this would be considered B-roll. B-roll is the term used for visuals that support the text of content, but it's not someone actively acting in front of the camera. So if the camera is on me and we're having an interview while I'm talking to the camera, that's A-roll, right? And then if while I'm talking, it slides away and you see the thing that I'm talking about, that's B-roll. Right? So this is a whole series of B-roll visuals that support the messaging of what's going on here. But as you can see as we go through this, I'm wanting it to switch every maybe 4 seconds on cue, on beat with the music. So change and change, right? Dun, dun, dun. And change. Oh, it didn't there. Okay, that's enough. That's just to give you an idea of kind of where we're going, so that you can kind of see that we need the visuals, and we need lots of different visuals, right? Because I'm switching scenery. I'm trying to capture many different parts of my story visually as we go through the video. The audio is remaining the same throughout, but the audio has some fun things mixed in with it, and at those specific cues in the audio, I'm trying to throw something visual that kind of matches with that part of the audio. So this is where video work becomes quite time intensive, right? You've got to watch everything and pick out the best parts. You got to pare them down. You got to, and then you've got to listen to the audio and listen for some of those distinctive parts that are interesting. In the audio part, though, let me just point out something with the audio. I don't know if I've downloaded. Oh, I didn't download the audio yet. So let me grab the audio. I'm going to go into audio file here. I'm going to drag that into that same folder. All of our files related to the video go in here, and when I drag that into place. I'm going to zoom out so that I can see where it is. I'm going to drag that to the beginning. This is my short version, and obviously my video elements are too long for this, but I'm going to pare it down till it matches. Now when I go over, isn't that a terrible sound? When I go over, I'm going to zoom in now, And you can see on my audio here, and I can make these bigger, so I can exacerbate, right, visually the information, the audio information. As I'm going through here, I can see peaks and valleys in my audio. So I can kind of see sometimes the visual information of where the beat is coming and where it's not coming, and I can mark those, and I can take note of the time in which it is happening, right? Okay, I'm going to turn my volume down, and actually I'm going to mute the audio now for just a bit. That's this little button right here. We can mute it so that it'll go through and I don't have to listen to that noise every time that you're going to get so tired of some of the audio that you're working with, because you really are going to have to go over it as you're pairing things up. You're going to have to go over it 15, 16, 17, 18 times, right? Which in some cases can be fun. I'll show you a really fun video that I worked on that I just finished the other day. It was so silly, and the company, which is a very professional company, wanted something that was so silly, and it ended up being really silly, but it was a lot of fun to work on.